Oh God, guys, I'm so sorry I'm late this evening. I've just got off the most incredible call with a really amazing lady, and we got sidetracked, and I didn't realise the time. I didn't want to cut her short either. Awesome woman in France that's about to launch a business that is literally going to change the world. I love those calls, goosebumps and everything. Let me just share out this video. So yeah, apologies that I'm late. Tell me who's here. Comment and say hey. Hopefully Facebook's going to let me see your comments today. I don't know if you've noticed the last few weeks, you guys have been talking to me and I've not been able to see you until I go back. Oh, I can see you today. Hey Karina, how you doing, girl? Who else is there? Hey Jackie and Lanzarote, how are we? I was having a meltdown. Good evening, glad I found you. Oh, Kerry, I'm here. Sorry, late. Let me just hit share. Who else is there? Hey Maria, hey Cara, hey, how you doing? Keep your comments coming so I know who's watching while I'm just sharing this. If you want to give it a little share, feel free. If you think you want to share it with your peeps. I hate those pushy like share videos. But if you do normally like what I've got to say, hey Hayley, how you doing? And you don't mind giving a little share, then go for it. We're going to be talking about inner child today. Getting a bit deep this evening. It's going to be really good stuff though, because I am going to be sharing with you some things that will help you identify how, oh thanks Cara, help you identify how your childhood self, hey Maida from Denmark, nice to see you tonight, how your childhood self and the experiences that you had show up for you. Hey Patricia, in your bank balance, in your ability to create success, in predominantly fear. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. How your childhood experiences of fear, childhood demons I dread to imagine. It's a juicy topic, isn't it, Hayley? Let's do it. Hey Martina, good evening. Let's dive in. So I'm not gonna do my normal shiznay and like talk to you about what I did at the weekend and stuff. I'm just gonna go straight for it because I know some of you have been waiting for me. And I'm very sorry about that. Thanks Maria, thank you for sharing, honey. I really appreciate it. So let's talk about how your childhood affects your income. Look, inner child work is so powerful. Give me some hearts if you've done inner child work before, or you've maybe just heard it. In fact, can you comment and give me a bit more than a heart, just so I understand where you're at with it. So if you comment, I've worked on my inner child before, or I've heard of inner child work, or never heard of it, just so I know who's listening and who's engaging in the training, where we're at. Now this is a training tonight. It's not just going to be me sharing some stories and cool stuff with you. It's going to be me taking you through my, hey Brona in Ireland, good evening, taking you through my concept. And this is mine, you won't find this anywhere else. I'm going to toot my own horn here and tell you that this is my own model for addressing fear that comes from our childhood memories, that plays out in patterns. So a lot of you were saying you heard of it but not done anything before, or not heard of it at all, which is great, which is really good, because we're starting with a blank canvas. And that's exactly what this training is designed for someone that's never done any work like this before, or even someone that's worked on this stuff intensely before and wants to try a different angle. So it doesn't matter where you're at, it's totally relevant for you tonight. But it's good to know roughly where you guys are so I can tailor what I say to suit you. So let me start with saying that when we're very young and impressionable, I've read a book on transactional analysis. Oh, I'm going to stop reading your comments now, because I'm going to get sidetracked. I can't multitask, I'm terrible. These pieces of hair are doing my head in. Look at this. I'm dying for a haircut. So when we're children, we are at our most impressionable. Those of you that are mummies will know that kids are like sponges, aren't they? They're absorbing everything. Normally the stuff you don't want them to absorb, like when you drop an F-bomb and they repeat it back to you, or when you're talking about someone and they repeat it back to them, all of that stuff. Hey Vivian, what a cool name. That stuff is the indication of just how much of a sponge children are and how much of a sponge we were when we were children. When we're children, we're looking at the world and we are deciding our views on it. We're deciding our opinions on ourselves and who we are and our place in the world. And we're doing that predominantly by watching and observing and looking at other people's reactions to stuff to mirror our own reaction on it. Or we're looking at people's reactions to ourselves, to us, to work out what's good and what's bad, what gets a good reaction, what gets a bad reaction. Children are amazing at like micro expressions and analysing micro expressions. They'll know from like a slight twitch whether you're impressed or not impressed, and they'll match their behaviour to get the reaction they want. They're masters at that. We were masters at that when we were children. So we form like a blueprint in childhood, a map of the world based on our experiences. There's a really famous quote, isn't there? Hey Jessie, that says something like, is it like, hand me the boy at 7 and I'll show you the man, or something like that? Hey Ian, how you doing? Basically, I can't remember the exact. Someone, if you know the quote, type it for me. But basically suggests that up till the age of 7, we are creating who we're about to become. We're forming our opinions, our beliefs. Our opinions and our beliefs are then what see the action that we take, and therefore who we become, what we create, what we don't create, whether we reach our potential, whether we don't. It's all being formed as a child, this blueprint, this map of the world that sees us act or react in certain ways, take action, not take action, take opportunities, not take opportunities. All of those things are happening before the age of 7. And there's a lot of scientific research that's gone into this. Don't get me wrong, I'm no scientist, but I've studied this with the intention of understanding how we can interrupt those patterns and those blueprints if they're not serving us, to make better ones. And we can do that through self-development, self-improvement quite easily. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today is a system that I use to do that, in particular when it comes to fear. Because fear is the number one thing that kills more dreams than anything else. Give me a boy until he's 7 and I'll show you the man. Thank you, Martina. That one, what she said. Fear. The reason I'm choosing the topic of fear tonight around the child that we were and our inner child is because fear is the underlying thing that creates all of our destructive thoughts and actions when it comes to pursuing the life that we want. Fear is the number one thing that stands in our way when it comes to stepping into our potential. Whether it's fear of what someone else is going to think, whether it's fear of being judged, whether it's fear of going broke, whether it's fear of investing in case it doesn't work out, whether it's money fear, it doesn't matter what it is, the underlying thing that's underneath all of our destructive patterns is fear. So let me just be clear about what we're not doing today. We're not going to try and eliminate fear with this work. We're not going to try and eradicate our fear or treat it as the enemy like it needs to be eradicated. It doesn't. It doesn't at all. Imagine a world where you didn't have fear. You'd be walking out in front of cars. Kids would be talking to strangers. There'd be all sorts of crazy shit going on if there was no fear. We don't want to eradicate our fear. We don't want to make our fear the enemy. We just need to learn to channel it into our biggest superpower, because we can. Fear can be our best friend if we know how to use it. Now there's 2 responses to fear. Fuck everything and run, the flight response, or face everything and rise, the fight response. You notice how they both spell out fear. Fuck everything and run, fear everything and rise. Face everything and rise, fear everything and rise. Now, predominantly, you will lean into one more than the other when faced with a fear. You will either be predominantly a fight response person or a flight response person. You will predominantly be the person that he legs it or stands the ground and fights. Now, when I say predominantly, I say that because there'll be some instances where you don't act in a way that you normally would. Like you can be, for example, the most timid woman that would normally run from any level of confrontation and hide from anything that scares them. But if someone messes with your kid, you'll unleash a whole different level of crazy on their ass. And suddenly you go from the flight response into fight response because it means enough. So mostly you will be somebody that either fights or flights, mostly. What we want to get underneath today is where that fight or flight response comes from so that we can understand it enough to change it if you're not responding to fear in a way that moves you towards your goals in business. If you know that you're pulling back rather than forging forward, if you know that you experience a lot of scarcity around money, which sees you act crazy, maybe make decisions that don't serve the highest good, if you know that maybe you procrastinate on the things that frighten you, if you know that you change your mind all the time to stop you from taking a certain action, if you know that you just get in your own way, and it might not be fear of failure that's causing it. It could be fear of success. It could be fear of a lot of different things. That's what we want to get underneath today so that we can not eradicate the fear but change your response to it so that you can channel it into something that does see you moving towards your goal rather than moving away from it. Now you're going to need a pen and paper to do this exercise with me tonight. So grab one now if you haven't already. And I really would recommend doing that. If you're not in a position where you can grab a pen and paper, then okay, listen for now, but go back. Make a commitment to go back to this exercise and write down these steps because you're going to need to do it. The sharpest of minds is not as sharp as the sharpest of pencils. One of my early mentors said that to me and it stayed with me, and I've always been a note taker ever since. And the notes that I've gone back over and read and make action lists from, I've always got way more from them than the stuff that's just up here. So don't rely on just up here tonight. Who's ready? Say I'm ready. Tell me you've got a pen and paper if you've got a pen and paper in the chat box. Tell me you're ready if you're ready and I will get started and let's go. Where's my drink? While you're telling me you're ready. In the other room. Gutted. I've been doing nothing but talking all night. My mouth's like I've chewed sand. So who's ready? I can't see your comments again. Facebook does this every now and then and it just... Okay, Nixie's ready, Jackie's ready. Okay, I can see them coming through now. Okay. Just two of you ready? You fucking kidding me? No, not starting. We're just two of you ready. Come on. Who else is ready? I'm ready, pen and paper. I'm ready to... Okay, cool. Okay, Patricia's ready. Cara's ready. Okay, I'll go now. Maria's ready. Let's do it. So... this is, shout James, I was so tempted, Cara. If it wasn't for the fact that I was live and I didn't want you to hear me going, James, you bring me a drink. Someone messaging for me. How funny would that be? Don't really kill me. Right, okay. So, let's do it. This model is called Scared. Now, I created this. You're not going to find it anywhere else. If you do, tell me because they've stole it. It's called Scared. So you're going to get your pen and you're going to write on the piece of paper Scared, but you're going to write it going down the page. Heidi's telling me to just shout. Don't tempt me because I'm getting so tempted to shout because my mouth's like... So down the page, Scared. S-C-A-R-E-D. Going down the page because we're going to use it as an acronym for this model. Each letter is a specific task in understanding the inner child response to fear and changing it and channeling it to something better. I am too scared to shout James. It's just fact, Hayley. I love that. Okay, Scared. I'm going to read through what each thing stands for so that you've got a rough, I can kind of speak there, my mouth's just like, so you've got a rough understanding of this model. And then I'm going to give you 7 steps to using it so that you can begin using it straight away. And then I'm going to give you my own example. of where I've used it to put it into context for you. Hayley. So the S stands for sit with your memories. So this is about making time in our busy schedules and our busy life to actually go back and remember some of the things that frightened us as a child and make a list, not a massive list, just 2-3 minutes, the first things that come up. A list of some of our memories of things that were moments of fear, points we were scared in our childhood that we can remember. Doesn't matter how old you were, doesn't have to be before 7 necessarily, just prominent things that come up from your childhood, points that you were frightened. That's the S. C, coping strategies. C stands for coping strategies. These are things that you observed or were given or that were even forced upon you as a way to cope with, as a response to these fears that you were encountering. These might be things that you were told you had to do in those moments you were scared. They might be things that you were suggested to. They might be things that you just did on your own out of a knee-jerk response. There might be things that you guessed were the right... Who did it? Who messaged you? That's amazing. I love you girls. So one of you is responsible for this. I've got to drink it now. Thank you. Who did it? Or did multiple of you, did lots of you message him? He's just come in with a big smile on his face and this in his hand. Who messaged you?
Hayley.
Hayley Page, you little legend.
Your wifey needs a drink. She's got a super dry mouth for her words.
I love you. As if you did that for me. Okay. So, coping strategies. Like a white knight. Coping strategies are the things that you did at that point to get through that fear. And how you coped at that time as a child. That's what the C stands for. The A is awareness of now. Awareness of now. This is the awareness of how you've transferred those coping strategies into the present day and how you've made them relevant, even if they're not relevant, to your business. So how you can see that they've come across and have been transferred into the way you deal with fear right now as a businesswoman, as an entrepreneur, as an adult. Awareness of now. The R is for reliable. And this is a question mark, reliable question mark, because we're asking a question here. And the question is, do they actually serve you? Are they reliable coping strategies for fear as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman, as an adult? The E is for evolved strategies. So this is where we're now taking those strategies and we're evolving them into something better that serves you now. And the D is for do it. Because this is where we change the behaviour by taking action in a way that we wouldn't normally. Do it. The best way to change a pattern is to do something different, not to think something different. So many people spend hours, months, years trying to change their thoughts, trying to get underneath why they think a certain way and changing the way they think, like they're broken in some way in here. Because it's the concept of thoughts creates action, creates results. So if I change the thought, I'll change the action, I'll change the result. Actually, if you change the action, it will change the thought, which will then, in turn, over time, change the result. But the action is actually the easiest thing to change. We've just got to do something different to what we would normally do, and that's what the D out of scared stands for, do it. So I'm going to give you the 7 steps now to how you apply these things, how you do this, how you can do it tonight. And I would say do it quickly, like as fast as you can after listening to this training. And I'm going to give you a personal example of how I use this. Don't judge me, because it's a really raw and honest example. So number 1, of the 7 steps, you write down, for the S part, sit with your memories, write down any situations that you can remember from childhood that's standing out as being scary. And just give yourself like 2 or 3 minutes. Like set a timer, 2-3 minutes. When it goes off, you stop. You just brain dump anything that comes up. Trust your intuition and trust your imagination that the things you come up with are the things you need to address now. And really give yourself this task, like lock yourself away, get rid of the husband, the dog, the kids, the technology, light a candle, maybe do a couple of deep breathing exercises to get yourself into a really relaxed state, and just let the pen move, and just ask yourself, what can I remember that frightened me as a child? What was really scary for me? And just let your pen move. Just write a list of the things that come up, 2-3 minutes. We don't want a big list because you're going to work these things. Number 2, you're then going to go over that list. And this is the C in scared. You're going to look for the coping strategies that were instilled in you. So you're going to look at those things and you're going to remember advice you were given. You're going to remember how you dealt with it, why you dealt with it that way. So you can go back and remember where these blueprints come from. Number 3, release judgment. You're going to not worry about whether it was the right advice you were given, the wrong advice. We're not going to judge our parents, our family, our friends who gave us that advice. It's not about that. It's not about making someone wrong or making someone right. It's just about recognising whether it serves you now or not, and making a conscious effort to either release it and do something different or continue. And I tell you that because there can be guilt attached to this exercise, because if it's someone you love dearly that gave you a coping strategy that's now playing out in business that's seen you to be quite destructive, there can be a bit of guilt even admitting that, but you don't have to feel that because it's not about blame or shame. Number 4, you're then going to address how it's shown up for you. So this is where you're bringing the awareness to now. And you're going to think, how is this playing out in my business? And you're going to start writing a list. Remembering what your parents say about money was all about, yeah, because there can be a lot of fear triggered around money from these memories as well. So how is it showing up for you? So this is where you're going to write a list of the ways that you see this coping strategy playing out, this advice playing out now as an adult, as an entrepreneur. And then number 5, you then ask yourself, how does it serve you and how is it destructive? Because everything has a flip side. If you were taught to deal with fear in a certain way as a child and you've carried that into an adult, yes, there are going to be parts of that potentially that are destructive, that are not leading you to the success that you want, that are seeing you act in ways which isn't in line with how you need to be responding. But there are also going to be ways where it absolutely is serving you, and we don't want to just let go of it completely. We want to highlight the things that you want to keep and the things that you want to change. Number 6, you're going to then evolve your coping strategy. So this is where you start to assess what needs to be different. What will serve me in a higher way? And really specifically, so this is about specifics. This isn't about saying, it's not about saying, oh, well, I'll just take more action. That's not specific enough. It needs to be very, very tangible. Like, for example, if you recognise that you've been held back by being visible with your business and you haven't done live videos, how you can evolve it will be by not going into flight response and not doing the live and ignoring it, but deciding to be in fight response when it comes to the fear of being visible and doing the live. So the next step will be do a live once a week. Because point 7, which is do it, we're going to take the action now. We're going to commit to taking the action in a different way than we would normally. Now I'm going to share with you to finish my example of this. Do not judge me. Or my dad, because he's involved in this as well. So here's my example of how I use scared to work through something that I recognised and that's something that came up for me. Now, I was doing this exercise with no agenda, with no particular thing on my mind, but just let's see what comes up. So I lit a candle, went into my memories. And one of the things that came up for me instantly was a memory of when I was about 12 years old. Some of you are going to remember this because I know I'm still friends with some people that were around at this time. I was about 12 years old and I used to get picked on a bit by this group of girls on our estate where we lived. They all went to the school together and I went to the Catholic school. So I was like the Bible basher. I was the different one. I was the one that went to a different school. And I was the goody two-shoes that wore a different uniform. And there was a lot of reasons why I was a bit of a target. And these girls used to hang out on the park, drinking cider, smoking fags, doing what little rebels do. And I was a bit of a goody two-shoes at the time. And I know what you're thinking, Kerry, because I know you're listening to this, but don't forget I was 12. So I wasn't 14 when you knew me, which is a totally different story, which is what led to the 14-year-old self that you know. So I used to walk past the park where they were hanging out, congregating in their little gangs. Milking Bank Park, yes, Kerry, exactly. And they used to terrorise me. They'd chase me off the park and threaten to beat me up. And I couldn't even walk past the park, let alone go on the park, without them threatening to lamp me. They used to call it then. Who used to say that? I'll lamp you. That's what they used to say. And I can remember the fear in me was so great. I did not want to get into a fight. I did not like confrontation at all. I was quite a quiet child up until that point. I'd be about 11, 12 at this point. I think I'd just gone to secondary school, or maybe just about to go to secondary school. So I just stopped going out. I just stopped going to the park. I stopped walking across the field. I stopped walking to the shop with my friends. I'd only stay in the street. I was terrified of being beat up. And I'd go home crying on a regular occasion because of it. And on this one particular day, I'd been chased off the park again. I'd gone home crying. Yeah, it is a Brummy thing, isn't it? I'll lamp you. I'd gone home crying. And my dad, his response is fight. And he said to me, under no certain terms, if you come home crying again about this same thing, I'll give you something to cry about. You'll have me to answer to. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to get back up that park and you need to pick out the bully, the ringleader, and you need to go straight up to her, look her in the eye. Okay, Matthew, that comment, shaming parents, is not okay with me, so you're now blocked. Okay, so you need to go back up to the park and you need to pick out the ringleader, the bully, and you need to let her know, look her in the eye and let her know that you will be frequenting that park. And if she tries to push you around anymore, that you will push back. And I was like, well, what if it hits me? And he was like, then you hit back. But you can't live your life frightened. Whether it was the wrong or right advice, it was the advice he gave me. And he sent me out of the house, shut the door behind me and was like, go. And I thought I was going to die. Like, I shit a brick. I was like, good God, I'm going to be killed. And I looked back and he was up the window going, go. I was like, holy shit. So I can remember the fear now. And this came up when I was doing this exercise. And I can remember walking to the park. My knees were literally knocking together. But I remember thinking there was part of my mind that thought, he's right, you know. Because I've tried running and I've run now for months and months and months to the point where I'm frightened to even go out of my house. It's not working, is it? I've got to do something different. He's right. I've got to stand up for myself. I've got to be strong. I've got to fight. Because I'd recognised that flight response hadn't served me. He had given me the advice to use my fight response to this fear instead. And I thought, okay. And I remember as I got a little bit close to the park, I turned around and he was behind me. He was far enough away for no one else to know he was there, but close enough so that he could see I was okay. And I approached the park and I saw this group of girls, and there would have been like 10, 15 of them and just me. And the ringleader, her name was Leah. Bless her, she's probably a lovely girl. But I walked straight up to her, psyched myself up all the way up there, I walked straight up to her, and I can't remember my exact word, but it was something along the lines of, I am going to be coming to this park from now on, and you or none of your mates are going to stop me. And if you don't like that and you try and push me around, I am going to push back. What do you want to make of that? And she punched me in the face. And the shock. So I punched back and I had my first scrap that day. But I developed a bit of a reputation, and I say first because it wasn't my last. I ended up being a bit of a bruiser, and I never took shit when I was younger after that. But it worked in terms of I wasn't picked on anymore. I wasn't picked on at all by that group of girls ever again. And I think they were a bit shocked by the balls that had appeared to grow overnight. And there was a bit of respect there that you don't push her around, and that's that. And that's the Michelle you knew, Kerry. There she is. However, when I did this exercise, I went back to that memory, and then I thought about the coping strategies I was taught. And I was taught by my dad, rightly or wrongly so, we're not here to judge it. I was taught you don't show fear, even when you're scared. You face it off. You stand up for yourself. You don't get pushed around by anyone. You stand up for something that you feel strongly about, even if it feels hard, and you be strong. That's what he taught me to cope with fear that day. Now I'm scared of you, don't be. I don't think, do you know, when I did this exercise, I was like, I wouldn't hit back now. It's not me at all anymore. Like, I've grown so much spiritually since that point. But however, and this leads us into this exercise nicely, I then thought, how has this served me? How has this served me in business? This coping strategy, this gift that was instilled into me, because they're all gifts, even if they're not serving you very well, they're gifts, because you can grow through them. It served me loads. I thought, you know, it's the same fighter in me that stood on a stage in front of 5,000-6,000 people and spoke 10,000 people at a time and has spoke, even though I'm terrified of public speaking. I've got up there and done it to further my career and my business. It's the same fighter in me that's pressed live on Facebook a few years ago for the first time, even though I felt sick. It's the same fighter in me that has negotiated business deals and dealt with conflict with people with strength. So it served me a lot. And then the next question was, how has it been destructive? It's been destructive because sometimes I've fought when I shouldn't be really fighting. I've fought to the point where I've been out of balance and I've worked too much when I should have been taking time out. When fears come up, fear of losing income, fear of my business going backwards, I've fought through it, and sometimes I've pushed myself so hard that I've burnt out. And that's stopped me from reaching new levels of success sometimes. Sometimes it's not served me because I've been such a fighter that I've sometimes gone into battle on things that should have just been left. I had to learn to pick my battles. When I did this exercise, I recognised those two big things. Pick your battles, not every battle has to be fought. And second, you don't have to fight through every fear, because sometimes it's okay to not be okay, and sometimes it's okay to take time out. Sometimes it's okay to retreat. And I had to learn that because the fighter in me wanted to fight through everything, and it can be exhausting. It served me in many ways, but it can be destructive because everything has a flip side. That's my personal experience of doing the scared model. I've got one here of a client as well that I was going to share with you, but I've run out of time. I've run out of time to do that because I've got to jump off and go back to the lady I was speaking to before I jumped on here, because we hadn't finished our conversation. But I want to hear from you. I want to hear what comes up when you do the scared model, and what you recognise and the action that you decide to take as a result. Because I love hearing that. Whether you want to comment here, and if it's a bit too personal to share and you want to reach out and share it with me in my inbox, I'd love to hear it. Thanks for listening, guys. Lots of love.